Was George Armstrong Custer actually the worst general in American history? The man who graduated last in his West Point class? The officer who got court-martialed twice? The commander who ignored orders, abandoned his men, and got 210 soldiers slaughtered in the most humiliating military defeat of the Indian Wars? This isn't just the story of Custer's last stand. It's the story of how one man's colossal ego, terrible judgment, and lust for glory turned him from Civil War hero into what many historians consider the most incompetent battlefield commander the U.S. Army ever produced. Today, we're exposing the truth behind the myth. How Custer ignored warnings, divided his forces against overwhelming odds, and made every possible mistake at Little Bighorn. We'll reveal why his own officers may have deliberately let him die, how his wife spent decades covering up his failures, and why this wasn't a heroic last stand, but quite possibly the dumbest military blunder in U.S. history. Before we begin, please like and subscribe to support the channel. Born in Ohio in 1839 as the youngest of 5, George Armstrong Custer was nicknamed Young Auntie for his childhood mispronunciation of his middle name. Sent to Michigan to live with his sister early on, he earned a teaching certificate in 1856, but craved more than a classroom career. In 1857, he enrolled at West Point, where he gained more notoriety for mischief than academics. Frequent reprimands, demerits, and weekend guard duties plagued his record. Once he even faced a court-martial for neglecting to break up a cadet brawl, an early hint of the disciplinary troubles that would follow. Unsurprisingly, he graduated at the bottom of his class in 1861. Custer left West Point amid a nation tearing itself apart. The Civil War had erupted that April, and he seized the chance for distinction. Joining the Union cavalry, his audacious tactics and fearless command quickly drew notice. By June 1863, at just 23, he became the Union Army's youngest brigadier general. Days later, at Gettysburg, he faced his first major test. As Confederate General J.E.B. Stuart's cavalry tried flanking the Union rear, Custer's forces intercepted them. In a chaotic clash of thousands of horsemen, his troops repelled the attack, securing a pivotal Union victory. By war's end, Custer's boldness had earned him the rank of Major General, commanding an entire cavalry division. Unlike most officers, he led from the front, often spearheading charges himself, a trait that cemented his fame and infamy alike. General Custer also appeared to have an almost supernatural ability to escape harm. Despite fighting in countless major battles and having 11 horses shot from under him, he never sustained serious injuries, a phenomenon so remarkable it became known as Custer's luck. His career intersected with pivotal moments of the Civil War. His cavalry units cut off Confederate General Robert E. Lee's final retreat, and Custer personally received Lee's white flag of surrender intended for Union General Ulysses S. Grant. He even witnessed the signing of the surrender terms on April 9, 1865. Such was his importance to the Union's triumph that General Philip Sheridan gifted the surrender table to Custer's wife as a token of gratitude for her husband's service. Just before the war's end, in February 1864, Custer married Elizabeth Libby Bacon. Her father, a judge, initially opposed the Union, deeming Custer unworthy of her. But after persistent courtship and a flood of impassioned letters, a habit that would continue throughout their marriage, he finally relented. Custer once declared, "I would be willing, yes glad, to see a battle every day during my life. Glory on the battlefield was his obsession, and Libby embraced her role as the devoted wife to this audacious soldier. Custer was as flamboyant as he was fearless. He took great pride in his appearance, particularly his flowing golden hair, which he scented with cinnamon oil. His wardrobe was equally extravagant: velvet suits trimmed with gold lace, wide sombreros, and other flamboyant attire inspired by 17th-century fashion. In 1866, Custer was promoted to lieutenant colonel and sent with Libby to Kansas to address the so-called Indian problem. Post-Civil War westward expansion had intensified conflicts with native tribes. By the 1860s, most had been violently displaced or confined to reservations, but the Plains Indians resisted fiercely. Custer engaged in numerous skirmishes against the Sioux and Cheyenne, battling for control of the Western Territories. In 1873, he first encountered two legendary warriors, Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, while guarding a Northern Pacific Railroad survey near Yellowstone. The government encouraged trained passengers to hunt buffalo for sport, devastating a vital resource for the tribes and fueling hostilities. Though Custer repelled them this time, he unknowingly faced the men who would later seal his fate. During this period, Custer once again defied authority by abandoning his post, another reckless act in a career defined by them. Once again, Custer ignored military protocol, this time abandoning his regiment without leave to see his wife, Libby. The stunt earned him another court-martial, costing him his rank and a year's pay. Yet his punishment lasted only 10 months before General Sheridan, recognizing his battlefield value, reinstated him to lead a campaign against the Cheyenne. Custer soon realized fighting native warriors was nothing like battling Confederate troops. The Indians knew the land intimately, and with their survival at stake, they fought with a desperation his own career soldiers couldn't match. By 1876, the Plains Indian Wars had reached a deadlock. The 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie had granted the Black Hills to the Sioux, but when gold was discovered there, the government seized the land. Tasked with relocating the tribes to reservations, Custer found resistance instead. Refusing to submit, thousands joined Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, Custer's past foes, along Montana's Little Bighorn River, preparing for a final stand. On June 25, 1876, Custer arrived early at the rendezvous point near the massive encampment. The plan called for surrounding the Indians and awaiting reinforcements before attacking. But upon spotting the village, Custer impulsively ordered an immediate assault. His motives remain unclear, though his trademark recklessness and hunger for glory likely sealed his fate. Dubbed Custer's Last Stand, the battle was less a heroic defense than a hopeless rout. Splitting his 600 men into 4 units, he sent one to guard supplies, 2 to attack from the south, and led the northern charge himself. The Southern forces retreated almost instantly, realizing they faced overwhelming numbers, over 2,000 warriors armed with repeating rifles and bows against the cavalry's single-shot weapons. Unaware of his allies' retreat, Custer pressed forward. Within an hour, his unit was annihilated. Every one of his 210 men died, except a lone survivor dispatched earlier with a message. The lone soldier Custer sent to request reinforcements failed. His plea went unanswered. His officers, Benteen and Reno, who despised both Custer and each other, had barely escaped annihilation themselves. Whether their inaction stemmed from fear, spite, or even drunkenness remains unclear. What is certain is that when Custer's desperate message arrived, they refused to come to his aid. True to his flamboyant persona, Custer's body was discovered surrounded by 40 of his men, including his brother and nephew, with fatal gunshots to his heart and head. The aftermath was grisly. Victorious warriors stripped and mutilated the corpses, possibly believing this would trap their spirits eternally. A horrified officer surveying the scene famously cried, "How white they look! How white!" Though initially reported Custer had been spared this treatment, later accounts confirmed his body was similarly desecrated. Facts concealed to shield Libby from the truth. Legend claims Cheyenne women pierced Custer's eardrums so he might listen better and inflicted other humiliations. Buried hastily on the battlefield, his remains were later exhumed and reburied with full honors at West Point. In 1881, a memorial rose at the battle site. Little Bighorn marked the U.S. Army's worst defeat in the Plains Wars, but the triumph was fleeting. Outrage over Custer's death, a Civil War icon slain, fueled brutal retaliation. Under intensified military campaigns, Crazy Horse surrendered in 1877, effectively ending the conflict. Custer's mythos owes much to Libby, who devoted 57 widowhood years to burnishing his legend through books and lectures. She found an ally in William Buffalo Bill Cody, a former Custer scout whose Wild West shows dramatized the last stand using actual Little Bighorn veterans. So, was Custer a hero, or history's most reckless fool? A daring leader, or a narcissist who got his men massacred for glory? The truth may be both, but here's the real question that haunts historians. If Custer had survived Little Bighorn, would he have been court-martialed for incompetence? Or worse, celebrated as a winner? Because that's the dark lesson of Custer's last stand. In war, failure gets remembered, but arrogance gets rewarded. The U.S. Army kept naming forts after him, Hollywood kept making him a legend, and to this day we still debate whether he was brave or just stupid. So what do you think? Tragic hero, or the worst general in U.S. history? Drop your verdict in the comments, and if you think another general deserves the dumbest commander title, let me know who. Because, we've got plenty more contenders. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and brace yourself, because history isn't about answers. It's about asking who really screwed up the most.